Hi everyone. We're heading home today. We're not heading to the church. We're heading back to my house, which is good because the day is over. It's done. The day is almost over, as they say. Gotta move on to other things. Mondays are, for those of you who don't know, which is probably most of you, Mondays are a good day because Mondays, that's the day when you're done your time on Sunday, which is when you have everybody in and you do the services and whatnot. But then Mondays are your day to plan ahead for the week that is to come and to look ahead at the readings and to just sit there and let them be. And most of us, or at least I remember myself when I was not the pastor of a church, but just going to church, I had no idea what the readings would be in advance. I mean, you can look it up. It's not hard. It's easily there and easily available, but I never knew it. I never bothered to look it up. But there's something great about finding out what the readings are ahead of time and just letting them sit with you for 3, 4, 5 days. Like the Monday, we come together, Amanda and myself, sometimes Len, sometimes Chris. We get together, we look at the readings for the week, and we sit with them, right? Like you discuss them on the Monday, and then there's this process of growth that happens with you in these readings from Monday through till Sunday, where you let them do what they're going to do. You let them, you approach them from a certain direction on the Monday, and then by the time Sunday rolls around, you've spent a week letting them be in your life, letting them be the readings that you're going to be looking at, and you come away with them on Sunday with a different approach than you had with them on Monday. And that in and of itself is just one small microcosm of the way the entire scriptures work, the way they all work and all hang together. Now, one of the real weaknesses is that we assume that mastery over the scriptures is the same as having seen any movie or read any book, and that you do it once, you never have to do it again. If you read Moby Dick once, and why would you? You never have to read it ever again in your whole life. It never comes up where you say to yourself, boy, I sure can't wait to read Moby Dick again. Now, there's the odd book that you're going to want to deal with, grapple with, wrestle with, and revisit. But it's not that many. Most books, most novels that you read once, and then you never return to them ever again in your whole life. That kind of thing. Well, when it comes time for the scriptures, one of our great weaknesses is children hear the stories of the Bible. They hear the story of Noah and the whale, Jonah and the ark, Jesus with the loaves and fishes. They hear all these stories, and then they don't go back to them because they say, yeah, I heard that when I was a kid. Yeah. But I hope something that will sink in to the life and mind of the standard person is that frequently the things that you visit as a child and then revisit later as an adult, especially with your own children, you approach them in a very different way than you did the first time, a very different way indeed. The best example that I have for this, the most useful one, is Calvin and Hobbes. You remember that comic? I mean, I'm sure you do. It was a big deal back in the day. Calvin and Hobbes, where it was a story of a boy and his stuffed tiger that was kind of alive, but kind of not really. You read this as a child and you love Calvin and his fun adventures and his tiger and all that stuff, but you come to it as an adult. You read it as a grown-up person, you go, holy smokes, his parents make a lot of sense. Yeah, they do. They really do. You start to identify with his parents hard, and you do that because you leave it for 10 years. You just let it sit, you let it rest. You know the stories, but you let them rest until you reapproach them as an adult, and then you all of a sudden read the same text in a different light. And the scriptures work that way too. As I say, the week that we have where we read them for the first time together on the Monday, and then we let them mature and develop, and we spend some time thinking about them over the course of the week. And what you come away with on the Sunday is different than what you started with on the Monday, and that's good. That's a good thing to do. We do that over the course of a lifetime. The story of Jonah and the whale, when you're a child, when you're a small child, it's a story of a guy getting eaten by a big fish, right? That's okay, haha, it's a fun story. But when you're a grown adult and you read that, and you read the story of Jonah running away from his responsibilities, like running hard from them, being frightened and afraid and not wanting his message to succeed, that's a hard story to hear, but it's a very human story. The story of Noah and the ark, which is the story when you're a small child, it's a story of the animals 2x2s, and the story of Noah and Mrs. Noah and a big boat, sure, but then when you read it as an adult and you encounter like God's pain at the sinfulness of the world, how wrenched apart he is at the fallen state of his creation, and not like he wants to preserve it, but he also knows that a lot of it has to go. These stories, you hit them differently when you're a grown adult than you do when you're a child. And one of the big weaknesses is if we just let them stop, if we just let them die, if we just let them grow moribund and cease to be something that we engage with, where we say, I heard that once, I never have to hear it again. In effect, with most of these stories, you have to read them again, encounter them again, as though for the first time. You have to view them as somebody who had never viewed them before. To come to them from the outside and say, great, is this something that I totally have grasped, that I've mastered? Because the thing about the scriptures is you're never done. One of the great things about the rhythm of the church year is that the stories are the same. Like the gospel is the same. The readings from the Old Testament or the epistles, they're the same. The Bible doesn't get rewritten. But what does happen instead is that you change and you grow and you mature, and when you encounter these stories again, you encounter them slightly differently. That's very important and very good to allow to happen. So when the readings come up again, as they do, and they come up all the same way every time, you change and you grow and you mature between the tellings of them, and you encounter them differently. Something you may not know is that when Harold Ramis was discussing the meaning of the movie Groundhog Day, which you may have seen, you may not have, I'll spoil it ever so gently because you should have seen it by now. Groundhog Day, the movie, is where there's a man, Bill Murray in the movie, who relives the same day over and over and over again. He lives Groundhog Day over and over and over again. And each time the day plays out the exact same way, but he changes and grows and matures and eventually masters it and overcomes it at the end of the time. Well, what Harold Ramis said about that movie is he said the meaning of that movie is, and for him being Jewish, it was like the reading of the Torah portion, that the Torah portion that they would read, or for us in the Christian church, our lectionary doesn't change. It's the same thing, well, for us every 3 years, historically every year, that it would not change and it would not be much different, but you would change in the meantime. And as you would change and grow and mature, you would find new things to draw out of those readings. You would find new experiences that you had that would color those readings a little bit differently. When you hear the story of Jesus with the loaves and the fishes, for example, you read that as a child and it's like a cool miracle that Christ does, but you read it as an adult and you see the subtle interplay between Jesus and the disciples, where they say to him, these people are hungry, and Jesus responds by saying, you feed them. And the disciples say, there's no way. There's no way we could possibly do that. There's no chance in this world or the next that we could, with our ability, with our resources, with our money, with our time, possibly feed this number of people. It's ludicrous. And when Christ takes the loaves and fishes and divides them between thousands and thousands and thousands of people, something amazing happens there, where human beings run up against their own limitations, and that's when they encounter the majesty of God. You read this differently when you've been asked to feed people, whether physically with real food or emotionally or spiritually or whatever. And you've hit the point where you have given all that you can, and there's still people standing before you, open hands, open mouths, seeking your help and attention, and you say, like, there's no way. I cannot do this. With my frail abilities, there's no way I can get this done. And that's when you see the miracles of God taking over. These are wonderful things. And as I said, the stories don't change. And people have been reading these stories themselves and to each other for thousands of years. They form the bedrock for our entire understanding culturally of how we understand everything. Everything moves through that lens. You may not think that it does, but it truly does. It is, as Northrop Frye would say, the great code through which we understand everything else. Well, that's how it all works, is that you see these things through these static stories that don't change, but Christ is able to speak to you differently through the same stories that are told over and over and over again. And if you wait and you stop and you think, these stories that you've been allowing to sit with you over the course of an entire lifetime have changed you over time. You change and they grow along with you. Think about them then like the Incredible Hulk's pants. You know the Incredible Hulk, big green guy? Yeah, well, like he always like tears out of his shirt, right? Because Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk, when he gets mad, you wouldn't like him when he's angry. But Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk, when he I haven't read these in ages, but when he turns into the Hulk from being Bruce Banner, like he rips out of his white shirt and shreds it to pieces. But his purple pants manage to somehow keep pace with him. And that as he grows and gets angrier, the pants grow along with him. And then when he shrinks back down, they shrink back down along with him. But think about the scriptures in that same way, that they grow with you. Your time, your experience, your life changes and they grow along with you. So never stop growing in it. Never say about these things, I guess I'm done, or I guess I've read that already, or I guess I've mastered that particular story, or whatever. You're not done. You're never done. In the same way that you're never done human improvement, in the same way that you're never done loving your spouse or your children. Like, you're never done with these things. It's never over. But what it is a matter of lifelong perpetual growth. As you grow, your spouse grows along with you. You change each other. As your children grow, your relationship with them changes. It grows. It develops from being one thing to being another. But like, the human beings that are there aren't different human beings, even though they change a lot over the course of that lifetime. When it comes time for how God reacts with you and interacts with you, you grow, and he definitely grows along with you. And it's a beautiful and deep and abiding miracle when that all happens. When God is able to do wonderful things with the material that we give him, that he is able to render the stories, the old stories, brand new again.